Reddit post. AITA for not attending my sister's wedding even though I paid for most of it? I 35F have always known that in my family. I was the afterthought. The responsible one. The good girl. The quiet helper who never needed attention. All that went to my younger sister, Madison, 29F. The golden child. The miracle baby. The girl with the perfect curls and the louder laugh and the magnetic presence that made everyone else feel like background noise. I stopped fighting it years ago. My parents never tried to hide their bias. They even joked about it like it was cute. Maddie was the sunshine. My mom would say with a laugh, and you were our moon. What she really meant was, Maddie lit up their world, and I only existed after dark. Despite everything, I stayed close. I tried to earn my place. I studied hard, got scholarships, worked through college, and now I have a stable job in software development. I live alone, have a modest house, and a golden retriever named Sully. No spouse, no kids. Too picky, my mom says. Not like your sister. She just knows how to be loved. Last year, Madison got engaged to her college boyfriend, Chase. He's fine. Generic in that Instagram influencer fiancé kind of way. But what mattered to my parents was that he wanted to marry Maddie. They lit up when she told them. Plans began immediately. Pinterest boards, tastings, flower arrangements. And somewhere along the way, my mom casually mentioned that the budget was tight. I wasn't asked directly. I never am. Instead, I got a text from my dad. You know we wouldn't ask if it wasn't for Maddie's special day. Anything you can do to help. I did what I've always done. I stepped up, quietly, with no fanfare. I offered $15,000, a big chunk of my savings. They cried. Madison called me crying too. Said I was the best sister in the world. Said she'd never forget it. Fast forward 9 months. No save the date. No formal invite. Nothing. I found out the wedding date through a cousin's Instagram post of the bachelorette weekend. When I confronted Madison, she said, I didn't think you'd want to come. It's more of a friends only intimate thing. You know, people who really get me. I felt like I had been slapped. I didn't tell her how much of the budget I had covered. She didn't seem to know or care. My parents didn't say anything either. When I brought it up to my mom, she said, well, sweetie, you said you didn't like big events. Maddie thought she was doing you a favor. The wedding is next week. I'm not going. And for the first time in my life, I'm not making excuses for that. But now the guilt is creeping in. Family is calling me cold, selfish, ungrateful. My dad said I'm punishing my sister on her happiest day. So Reddit, ITA for not going to the wedding that I funded, but wasn't invited to? Update 1. The wedding day came and went, and so did my last bit of loyalty. Well, the wedding happened. Saturday, June 8th. I didn't attend. I spent that day walking Sully in the park, getting ice cream, and binge-watching bad 90s thrillers. I blocked most of my family's numbers the night before because I didn't want the guilt calls or one last chance manipulations. I wanted peace, or at least something close to it. But peace didn't last long. On Sunday morning, I woke up to 47 unread messages, 19 missed calls, and 3 voicemails. All from family members who were suddenly very, very concerned with the disgrace I had brought onto the family. The most colorful voicemail came from Aunt Joanne, who screamed about how ashamed my late grandmother would be, how I had embarrassed Madison in front of so many important people, and how I was clearly jealous of my sister's happiness. I nearly laughed. Then came a message from my mom. No apology, no understanding, just, you may have missed the ceremony, but you can still come to the brunch. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I didn't reply, but then it got worse. That afternoon, my cousin Tara, the only semi-sane relative I have, FaceTimed me while she was still at the wedding brunch. She whispered, "You're not going to believe this," then turned the camera toward a handwritten chalkboard sign set up near the mimosas. It read, "This beautiful day couldn't have happened without our generous sponsors. Mom, Dad, and our anonymous family angel." Anonymous family angel. I felt sick. They literally took my money, buried my name, and made me invisible at my own sister's wedding. I didn't even make the thank you speech, according to Tara. I was a line on a chalkboard, reduced to a myth, a ghost. Then came the final blow. Tara sent me a group photo from the reception. My parents, Madison and Chase, the bridal party, and sitting in my seat. My literal assigned seat from the original guest list I was once part of was one of Madison's influencer friends, tagged as Mad's soul sister. In my seat, wearing one of the bridesmaid dresses. I never agreed to pay for a stranger to sip champagne and take my place. That night, I sent one message to our parents' group chat. It was short. $15,000 was my final gift. I've rescinded my sponsorship of this family. Please remove me from all future events. No one replied. My number was removed from the family chat less than 30 minutes later. The silence since then has been deafening and liberating. I've been thinking about what it means to grow up believing that love has to be earned, paid for, or performed. I'm starting to believe that the most radical thing I can do now is walk away, not in anger, but in clarity, in peace. For those asking, yes, I have receipts. And no, they didn't sign a formal agreement. But I didn't give that money expecting it back. I gave it expecting respect. And now that I know it was never coming, I'm closing that chapter. Update 2. Madison called, and it was worse than I imagined. I wasn't going to respond to anything. I had my peace. I was holding on to it with white knuckles. But Madison called yesterday. Not texted. Not emailed. Called. I stared at her name on my screen like it was radioactive. I let it ring out. Then she called again. And again. On the fourth call, I answered. I was tired of the guessing, and some twisted part of me wanted to hear it. Maybe hoping for an apology, maybe just confirmation that I really was done with all of them. What I got was an explosion. How could you do this to me? She yelled before I could say anything. You made my wedding about you. Do you have any idea how humiliated I was when people started asking why you weren't there? People thought we were fighting or something. I stayed quiet. I think the silence made her angrier. She continued. You couldn't even show up and smile for one day. One day, after everything we've been through together. That's when I finally spoke. Everything I've been through, Madison. And the part where I paid for your venue, your flowers, your cake, and got erased? That part. She went silent for a beat. Then, in this fake sweet voice I've heard her use on our parents 100 times, she said, You didn't have to pay, you know? No one made you. That was your choice. My jaw clenched. So was not inviting me. But you expected me to just keep smiling through it like always. You're so dramatic, she snapped. This is exactly why I didn't want you there. You suck the energy out of everything. It hit me like a slap. She didn't even deny it. She didn't even pretend to regret it. She weaponized every insecurity I ever had growing up, the quiet kid who couldn't compete with her sparkle, and turned it into justification. Then came the final line that solidified everything for me. I think you need help, like therapy or something. The fact that you're still mad about this shows you have unresolved issues. Unresolved issues. I nearly laughed. You're right, I told her. I am getting help, and it's helping me realize I don't need to keep bleeding for a family that feeds on guilt. She hung up, not even a goodbye. But later that night, I got a DM from one of her bridesmaids, someone I barely know, saying she heard Madison might be considering small claims court to get more money if I kept talking trash about her wedding. I hadn't spoken to anyone outside of Reddit, which tells me Madison or one of her minions has been reading. So if you are Madison, hello. I meant what I said. The money is gone, but so is your leverage. I don't owe you or our parents or anyone else another damn thing. Update 3, the family intervention and the burn book email. So I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when they all came knocking. Figuratively, not literally, thank God. 2 nights ago, my dad, my mom, and, brace yourself, Uncle Ron from Florida, all decided to stage what can only be described as a digital family intervention. It started with a group Zoom call I didn't agree to attend, but my mom sent a calendar invite with the subject line, "Let's talk this out like family red heart." I declined, immediately, but that wasn't the end. That night, I received a 5-paragraph long email from my dad titled, "Olive branches are meant to be accepted." He started with the usual, "You've always been so sensitive. We love both our daughters equally." And the kicker, "You didn't come from a war zone, you came from love." Sure, Dad. That's why you only remembered I existed when Madison needed something expensive. That's why I became the de facto family wallet and emotional punching bag. Then, in an almost laughably tone-deaf twist, he tried to guilt-trip me for turning the cousins against Madison. Because apparently 2 of them confronted her about the wedding situation and told her she was acting entitled. Cousin Tara, bless her spine of steel, told Madison to refund me or at least publicly acknowledge my contribution. Madison allegedly cried, said she was being bullied on her big moment, and made a dramatic exit from their family dinner. But the real punch to the gut came the next morning. I woke up to an anonymous email account with the subject line, "Thought you'd like to know what your sister really thinks." Inside was a PDF, 20 screenshots from a private group chat of Madison and her bridesmaids, dated over the last 6 months. How the person got access, I have no clue. Maybe a rogue bridesmaid. Maybe someone finally had a conscience. But what I read, I still feel sick. There were jokes about me being the sponsor with no face. One bridesmaid said, "If she's not invited, she can't ugly cry in photos." Another said, "We should just put her in a blackout tent out back and let her feel included from afar." Madison laughed in all caps, called me her little investor and the tax write-off sister. But the worst was a message Madison sent the night before the wedding. "Let's hope she stays home. Nothing ruins a bridal glow like resentment and single energy." It wasn't just cruel, it was surgical, calculated. It was proof that this wasn't some misunderstanding. This wasn't me being too sensitive. This was intentional exclusion, carefully masked as concern, with a smear campaign to back it up if I dared complain. So I did what I never thought I'd do. I forwarded that PDF to our entire family group chat. No caption, no commentary, just the receipts. The group chat exploded. Aunt Joanne left the chat. Cousin Tara texted me privately and said, "You just dropped the nuke we all needed." My mom? Radio silence. My dad? Just one message. "We'll talk later." Madison blocked me on everything. I didn't think I'd feel victorious. I thought I'd feel vindicated, maybe, but not this strange emptiness. Maybe because it means there's no going back. No more hope for some version of family I never had. So here I am, alone, but for the first time, not lonely, not begging, not bleeding for scraps. I have peace, and I have boundaries, and Madison has her pictures, her venue, her spotlight, but she no longer has me. No more updates after this. The story's over, and I survived it. Update 4. The apology tour that wasn't and the will that changed everything. Just when I thought the curtain had closed, life handed me one final, flaming encore. I hadn't spoken to my parents in nearly 2 weeks after dropping the bombshell PDF into the family chat. The silence had been golden, therapeutic. I was working with my therapist on setting boundaries, reconnecting with healthy friendships, and even planning a solo trip up the Oregon coast to recharge. Then, because the universe clearly needed drama for dessert, I got a call from my dad's lawyer. Yes, his lawyer. First, I panicked. My thoughts went wild. Was Madison actually suing me for defamation? Were my parents trying to force some kind of legal contact to drag me back into the toxic vortex? But it wasn't that. It was about the will. My parents aren't particularly old, but my dad is meticulous, to say the least. Apparently, after the wedding drama exploded across the family, a chain reaction of uncomfortable conversations happened, some involving extended family, some involving financial advisors. My father, in an attempt to restore order, decided it was time to revise their will. I was being contacted because I was being removed. Let me say that again. I was being removed from the will. I nearly laughed when the lawyer told me, "You're sure this isn't a prank?" I asked. He sighed. He sounded tired, like he knew how messed up it was. "No, Mississippi H. This was at your father's explicit request." The updated document left everything to Madison. The house, the savings, the retirement accounts, the cabin in Vermont that I helped them renovate over 3 summers during college. Gone. There was a brief line that stated I had been gifted substantially during their lifetimes, and that they wished to recognize the daughter who remained loyal and present. Loyal and present. The same family that ghosted me from the wedding I funded. The same daughter who invited me out of her life like I was a liability. I didn't even cry. I expected it in some dark corner of my soul. But what I didn't expect came 3 hours later. Madison showed up at my door. She looked a mess. Red-rimmed eyes, expensive coat buttoned wrong, makeup smudged. She didn't even knock at first. Just stood there, like she expected me to read her mind and come out like I used to. I waited. Eventually, she knocked. Tentatively. I opened the door. "Can we talk?" she whispered. I didn't say anything. Just stepped outside and closed the door behind me. She launched into what I guess was her idea of an apology, about how things had spiraled, how she was under pressure, how no one's perfect, and that this family can't be healed if I keep playing victim. Every sentence was soaked in deflection and backhanded blame. She even tried to convince me that the bridesmaids chat wasn't serious and just the way girls talk under stress. I stopped her. I said, "You didn't just exclude me. You erased me, then mocked me for still existing." She started crying. Said she never meant to hurt me that much. And then, because she can't help herself, she asked the real reason she came. "Will you talk to Dad? Try to fix this. I didn't ask for all the inheritance. I don't even want it like that." I stared at her for a long time. Finally, I said, "You didn't ask for it. You just made sure I wasn't worth keeping." She didn't say anything. I walked back inside and closed the door. I haven't heard from any of them since. But the thing is, I'm not angry anymore. Not sad. Not crushed. I'm just done. There's something liberating about being cast out of a family that only saw you as useful. It's like being released from a role you never auditioned for in a play you never liked. I'm rewriting my life now. One without applause-seeking, without emotional extortion, without being the villain in someone else's delusion. If you're reading this and thinking, "I'd never let it get that far," good, don't. But if you're like me and you already have, know this, you're allowed to walk away. Even if it costs you money. Even if it costs you family. Even if it costs you your name in a will. Sometimes, peace is worth more than inheritance. Final update. The letter, the lawyer, and the legacy I didn't expect. 2 weeks after Madison showed up at my door, I thought the storm had finally passed. I was focused on healing, genuinely trying to let it all go. I'd blocked most family members, taken that solo trip up the Oregon coast, 10 tenths recommend, and even started looking for a new apartment far from my childhood suburb. I wanted space, physical and emotional. Then I got a letter, a real handwritten letter, addressed to me in my father's handwriting. I almost didn't open it. I stared at it for hours. My first instinct was to toss it into the fireplace and watch the smoke carry away whatever guilt he was trying to shovel back onto me. But eventually, curiosity won. I opened it. It wasn't an apology. But it wasn't blame either. It was regret. In it, he admitted that he didn't understand me growing up. That he always found it easier to parent the child who needed less. Which is why Madison got all the attention, and I got all the responsibility. He said he never realized how much he had leaned on me financially and emotionally until it was too late. He claimed removing me from the will wasn't meant to punish me, but to give Madison what she needed to succeed in her marriage. Like a bribe, or a crutch, because God forbid she stand on her own. He said he regretted how the wedding unfolded, that my absence had been noticed, that people had asked, and he realized only after the fact that what they thought would keep the peace had only exposed the rot. The final line hit harder than I expected. "You were never the golden child, but you were always the gold." I just didn't see it. A week after that letter, I got another call from his lawyer. Different tone this time. Apparently, after receiving backlash from other relatives, and maybe facing his own mortality a little more honestly, my dad amended the will again. It's now in a trust. Split evenly. No more erasure. Here's the twist, though. I told the lawyer to decline it. He was stunned. You're turning it down? Entirely? Yes. Because I don't need it. I won't be guilt back into a family system that thrived on my silence. That inheritance comes with strings. I can already feel them wrapping around my throat. I have enough. I have me. And for the first time, that's enough. So I donated the equivalent of what my parents spent on Madison's wedding. Every last cent I covered. To a nonprofit that funds weddings for people who've survived abusive homes. Full circle, poetic justice, call it what you want. But it helped me breathe again. As for Madison, I heard through Cousin Tara she's pregnant now. There was no announcement sent to me, obviously, and I'm fine with that. I've mourned the sister I wanted, the one I tried to love into loving me back. And my parents? Still alive, still together. But for the first time, I'm not part of the equation. This will be the last update. Not because the pain is gone, but because the story has changed. It's not about them anymore. It's about me. Rebuilding. Healing. Laughing again without wondering who's going to turn it into shame. Sleeping without dreams of screaming matches. Living. I may have been erased from one version of the family photo, but I'm in every frame of the life I'm building now. And damn it, I look good in all of them. Thank you for stepping into another tale with me. Every story unlocks a different world, and I'm glad you were here for the journey. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my stories Unchained, where every ending is just the beginning of another adventure. Until next time, keep your mind open and your heart ready for the next story, Unchained.